welcome back everyone. Hopefully you're doing great, hopefully you're having a wonderful day. And today we are shooting another video. Now, here it's currently sort of beginning of March time, so usually what would be happening is we'd be going into A-levels, GCSEs, and we'd be saying goodbye to the interview stage of your application. Now, however, this year it's a little bit different, things have been shaken up a little bit, and so we finished the interview session really. Because of the, changed nature of the interviews, it means that we're now well and clearly into the exam period. But as well as this, exams have now been changed a little bit, so you don't really have your public exams anymore. So I thought it might be a useful thing for you guys to see a little bit more into, first year, and, I'll hopefully shoot a lot more videos in terms of exams, preparation, workloads, and etc. And, everything that you need to know in order to, come into first year with a good, sort of preparation. Anyway, so before we get into the video, if you enjoy the video, make sure you go and smash the like button down below and also hit the subscribe button. We are on 154 subscribers now, which is phenomenal news, but it just means that I want to get to 200 subscribers by, mid-March, end of March. So please do go and hit that subscribe button down below. It'd be super helpful for me, and it puts a smile on my face. So all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. It takes 5 seconds, it's free, and yeah, go and do that. However, those of you who aren't current offer holders or current sort of prospective applicants, don't worry, I'm still going to be making videos about interviews, about UCAT, BMAT, about A-levels, GCSEs. It just means at this period in time, these few months, it's not really the forefront of our focus in terms of interviews, but I'll still be making a lot of A-level videos, GCSEs, and then, when we get onto, the next interview cycle, I'll start making more MMI videos. But for the current time, I thought it'd be nice to move on to some medical videos. Now, this is a requested video, actually. It got requested, I think, a few weeks ago now, and it's how I take notes at medical school. And so I'm going to run through basically the basics of how I take my notes at medical school, and it's been a journey, I'll be honest. Let's get into the video. So the way I take notes is complicated, I'd say. There's no such thing as a perfect note-taking system. Your note-taking has to be very adaptable and versatile. You're going to go through a lot of different things in medical school. You're going to go through a lot of different types of lectures, a lot of different types of teaching, and so you need to have note-taking that can adapt to those situations. Now, often that means you need multiple types of note-taking that you bring together, sort of a kit. And it means that you might need 2 types of note-taking systems. One you use for a particular session, and another you to use for another type of session. So, for example, you might use one for group learning, another for your lectures, and you put them both together and you come up with a system. There's no sort of note-taking method. I always like to think of it as a system because, it consists of different methods that you use together in the right way. So, first of all, place where I take my notes. Now, I've moved paperless since university started, and very nicely, the university have given me my own iPad with its own cover, which is very nice. It's not the newest one, it's the 7th generation iPad, so that's the one that you really need, and you don't really need anything else too fancy. Let me show you. So there you go, it's the 7th generation iPad. It's nothing too fancy, but it's, it's a very nice iPad. It's big, it's fast, it's new, and, it's very suitable for note-taking. It's a really good iPad for taking notes and, accessing online resources, which is the main purpose of it. As well as that, it's got the added benefits, it's yours, so you can do whatever you want with it as long as you don't, sell it to the black market. You can literally do whatever you want. I paired it with my, ID, my cloud, and so it's accessible on my iPhone, my Apple Watch, and it's got all my health data on it. It's got my personal contacts on it. I've got Netflix on it as well. I've got, my WhatsApp on it. I've got everything on it. So my personal stuff's also on this. So it's a very nice thing that university have done for us to give us these iPads. I'm aware not all universities will give you iPads, so I'd highly recommend investing in an iPad as opposed to a MacBook if you're thinking of deciding between the two, but I'll do that in another video. But today, anyway, we're going to be talking about how I make my notes. Now, on my iPad, as you can see, I have this, and this is, for those of you who don't know, it's an Apple Pencil. It is basically a small device, very small, and it's virtually one of those stencils you get, with your phone. You can get free stencils, that come with devices. Now, what's really good about the Apple Pencil is that it is very, very similar to the way a real pen would interact. Now, what I mean by that is it works very much off, how you write and the force you apply onto your iPad. So, for example, if you were to press lightly on your iPad, you'd most likely get a very thin sort of line. If you were to press really thick, you'd get a really thick line. And in that sense, it's very pressure sensitive. As well as that, it's got a nice ergonomic design, so it's very, slim, comfortable, and it's got a very little charging dock right at the top, which is separated by the little cap. And the charging time is virtually 10 minutes to get 100% of charge. So it's fantastic in that sense. It's very student friendly. So, if you've got your iPad and your pencil and, you've forgotten to charge it one day and you're in your lecture, 10 minutes, just plug it into your iPad right at the bottom here. It just goes in here and it takes 10 minutes to charge, and that's it. So, you know, that's what I use in terms of my equipment for note taking. It's my iPad and my Apple Pencil. That's all I use. A lot of people use computers for note-taking methods, and I actually did start with a computer, and I started with my MacBook, and I had Notion running, which was a interesting method of note-taking actually. The problem with Notion, although it's fantastic, I tend to use it more for my personal life. I tend to find that typing things out means that I don't actually engage with the topic, and you know, I'm more likely to get tired, bored, you know, not engage with it at all, and I find that's really counterproductive. And I think the best way of learning, honestly, is to keep doing that handwriting, and using the Apple Pencil and taking notes by hand is just a lot more sort of an active way of learning, and it forces me to really engage with what I'm reading, as opposed to typing, which you can just copy and paste off. You type, you know, you don't have that muscle memory aspect. You're just typing, you're pressing. There's no sort of identifiable muscle mechanism which would separate, for example, a W from a Q on the keyboard. Whereas, you know, when you're writing, your W's are going to be requiring different muscle movements to produce a Q. So in that sense, you know, it's very different when you're handwriting, and I definitely prefer handwriting. So I've been doing that. So I split my note-taking system up into two aspects. I take it into the learning system, and I take it into the question system. So the learning is basically when I come up against material for the first time, and that's my handwriting method. That's what I do when I come up against material for the first time. So for example, in a lecture, or for example, in some sort of a teaching session where I don't know the material and I'm being taught it, I'd use the handwriting system and I'd make notes. When I'm coming up against things in a consolidation session, in a tutorial, in a revision session that I'm doing, I don't need to take notes. I need to make flashcards. I need to be making questions that I can answer later on. And in that aspect, I use flashcards. That's my question-taking system. A lot of people have different ways. So some people don't use flashcards. Some people use, you know, things like Notion and use a toggle function on there, which I've spoken about in a previous video. So they use that. Some people use Excel as a method of making questions and answers. I use Anki as my primary app because it's got fantastic active recall algorithms, and it's also got fantastic space repetition algorithms embedded into the app. So I don't need to worry about when I need to do each deck. It'll automatically tell me which cards I need to do today so that I can memorize the whole deck, which is really cool. There are loads of other options. You've got Quizlet, you've got Brainscape. These are all really good apps, but I tend to use Anki. It's just really easy to use and it's simple. It's boring, and a lot of people don't like it for that, but I think the more boring an app is, the more, you know, you focus on the stuff that you're learning. The more exciting and interesting an app is, you get thrown off by, you know, things like making it look pretty, making it look nice, you know, organizing it. Anki's very sort of black and white, very clear cut, and it hasn't got any sort of fancy frills or anything on it. And that's actually an advantage. I think it makes your learning a lot more distraction free, and you focus a lot more on what you're actually learning. As well as this, it's got the best space repetition algorithm, you know, in the flashcard game at the moment, really. It's been around for the longest for a reason. It's very well known to medical students, and you know, most of the resources you pick up from your medical school, from older years, from teachers, from friends, will likely be on Anki, so it's just really easy. As well as this, Anki has loads of conversion sites, so if you find a really good resource on Quizlet, there are loads of Quizlet to Anki conversion sites where you can convert decks from Quizlet into Anki. So Anki is the most, you know, manipulative and very sort of malleable flashcard app out there, and it's very easy to use. I'd highly recommend you use that. So yeah, that's really how I take notes. Now, in terms of the handwriting, I gather that I may not have told you a lot about it, so let me break it down a little bit more. So I use Notability, which is an app that costs about £7 to £8, I think, on the App Store. It's really useful, it's really good. It's basically sort of a online app that is basically a sheet of paper. And it's got various different dividers and folders, so it's basically like a folder with A4 lines of paper just made into an app. And you've got organization systems here, and you've got pages here. And what I like to do in Notability is, well, I like to make sort of notes on it, and I like to make notes by making mind maps. Lots of people like different methods. Some people like making notes, you know, in the standard way of just writing them down. Some people like to use the Cornell note-taking system, which is also able to do on Notability. Anything you can do with a sheet of paper and a pen, you can do Notability. I use mind maps because I find them really easy. I've got images that I've taken from my lectures, you can see, which are really easy to just transfer onto Notability. You've got little arrows, curly V arrows. I've got color-coded notes here. And it just makes it really easy to learn because I'm breaking it down into you know, sort of notes, short notes, short little, you know, funny things that I understand. And you know, it's very personal to me. For example, if I gave to someone else, they wouldn't be able to make head to toe of this, really. They wouldn't be able to decode it. This is very much sort of the way I understand it. And that's what makes mind maps so fantastic. They're so simple. It's an A4 sheet of paper, you put the title in the middle, and you put everything else around it. And it means that you break down everything into you're forced to actually come up with the concrete structure behind the note-taking system. So it's up to you whether you want to go out into different chapters of a topic, whether you want to go into different concepts, or whether you want to go into different diseases. It's really up to you. And I think that's what's really fantastic about mind maps, and that's what really sets them apart. And I really like mind maps. I'd highly recommend you guys give it a go. And yeah, that's what I do really with my note-taking. And I've been taking mind maps now for a few months. I've settled into this note-taking system. I've changed it quite a lot. I used Notability initially to annotate slides for my lectures. It didn't work really well. I then switched to Notion, which again didn't really work. I then sort of just switched to only flashcards, so no note-taking. That didn't work at all because, I had no actual notes. I then went back to Notion, which worked for a little bit and it didn't work. And I've finally gone full circle and I've come right back to Notability, and instead I've integrated Notability with my A-level note-taking method, which is mind maps, and it's worked a peach. So if you guys want to know the basic answers of how I take notes in medical school, I use mind maps and I use Anki, and I balance the two and use them both in an effective way. So yeah, that's the end of the video, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I know this was a requested video, so hopefully it answers your questions a little bit. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to go hit the subscribe button. Please get us to 200 subscribers by the end of March. That's my target, and I really want to hit it because, it makes me really happy, and it, motivates me to make more videos, I'll be honest. So please do the subscribe button down below, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.